G'day everybody, it's Dave from Wing Chun Mind Force. I'm delighted today to be talking to my good mate Carl Drinkwater from New Zealand, which is one of Australia's states. There's two islands. We haven't put it on our flag yet, but we got a lot of very, very good Wing Chun exponents over there, and quite a few people who've been influential on me have come across the what do we call it, the
ditch.
The ditch, that's right. They've come across the ditch here to Australia to share their wisdom, and I'm actually by marriage related to a couple of Kiwis, and my best mate since I was about 20 is a Kiwi, so I have quite a feeling for Kiwis. And Carl's a typical Kiwi. He's a real decent bloke, and he's fairly recently shocked the hell out of us in Australian Wing Chun, and connected New Zealand Wing Chun by going and trying to die of a horrible disease out of the blue, and he's survived and thrived. So today we're going to talk to Carl. I'm talking to Carl right now about Wing Chun and about his experience surviving this disease and whatever else we get into Wing Chun related. So, g'day, Carl.
Yeah, g'day, David. We actually call Australia the West Island, just so you know.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, there's a north, south, and the west. Yeah, so it's a bigger one, obviously.
I wish we had a bit of your coolness and a bit of your rain. We get plenty of rain here, but
yeah.
It'd be nice if we didn't have the snakes. We could have a bit more New Zealandish. Don't want to get rid of the koalas or the kangaroos, but
there's a few snakes over here, mate, but they're not. Yeah, they've got legs.
Have they? Got legs?
Yeah, and they're human. Yeah, there's a human and they've got legs, mate. But there's a few snakes over here running, a couple of them a lot.
So you got things called wetters, which I've never actually laid eyes on, but it sounds like a giant cockroach with teeth.
Oh, it's big, mate. They're freaking beautiful critters.
And they bite you?
I don't know, mate. You've got to go right out into the bush, into the quite wet, damp areas to find one. You're not. Yeah, I don't know.
You got to pick up. Bite you.
Couple of things I wanted to say, because I've watched a lot of your Sifu series. One is your backdrop's gorgeous. I really like it. You got the Viking ship on the left there, or where I am on your right, my left. Did that picture behind you, did you paint that?
No, it's a Chinese masterpiece that a mate of mine who married a beautiful Chinese girl. He's been living over there for several years. She's called her name's Jen, and she's called the Walt Disney of China.
Oh, okay.
Really, it's she's just has this incredible animated kids show, very, very popular in China. And my mate Simon Higgins, he's a very well-known kids book writer and just very creative dude, and he works with Jen, and he's on Chinese TV as he's sort of like a James Bond type character. He's been in a martial art movie. So before COVID, obviously, they came to visit us, probably a year before that. And this was a present he gave me, and being a painter, as soon as I saw it, I went, whoa, that's a masterpiece. And he got it in a Chinese sort of an art market, but it's from the 70s. It's actually, which way do I go? It's actually a profound masterpiece. And the funny thing is, I just thought it looked great, but as I had it in my Quoon, I brought it in here to my sort of interview area, but it just gradually started to speak to me the more I looked at it. And then I could see things in it. And then a few other Wing Chun friends wrote to me and said, oh, that painting represents the spine and the sort of chakras and chi energy coming up the spine, and there's all sorts of meaning and they
Very
sent
cool.
me some other pictures that are very similar. So it's and Simon didn't know that. He just thought it was a wonderful picture, but it was sort of like a gift from the gods for me. It was very meant to be, and it's, you can see there's like a waterfall, a little village, some oxen down here.
Yeah.
See this mountain here?
Yeah.
Can you see it looks like a guy in a robe? That's his head. And that's like his hands, like sort of meditating.
Oh, okay.
Looks like a guy looking that way. And once you see that,
Oh, yeah.
you start to see people doing that. There's all these misty characters that, if I tip it, see all the guys there. They're all sort of doing that.
Yeah.
All the trees are sort of like
leaning that way.
Yeah. And I don't know what the symbol is yet, but there's one big figure and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you get the same thing. One big figure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. So there's lots of mysterious symbolism going on in this painting.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And before we get going, I'll tell you about this necrotizing fasciitis. I just want to reiterate what Sifu Nima said to you in the 2 videos I watched on actually getting our late Seagull Shong Tin reinstated into Wikipedia, because that was just an awesome job on your part, and they should have erected a statue of you somewhere, mate, because that was just I was blown away. I said, if anyone can do it, it'll be David. He's that artistic sort. He'll get down and he'll investigate and he'll find stuff. And so thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, mate. I was helped by heaps of people, including yourself, but it really enraged me the same as it did everybody else. I'm like, what the hell? What a low thing to do if you hate a lineage or whatever. Go and troll them or whatever your bag is. Not that I would say to people to do that, just ignore them. If you don't like people, if you think it's all bull.
Yeah, well, you'd know and I'd know. When you look at a lot of YouTube videos on Wing Chun and on some of these sites, you see some very good martial artists, but you see some absolute shit, don't you? And you and I would pick that up. Like, I've been doing it 28 years since I was 30, and you just pick it up. It's not hard. You can pick it up if you're looking at karate or taekwondo or anything. You'd pick it up just by their stance. And I've been a judge on taekwondo gradings, not gradings, but tournaments where they're both doing their they call them patterns, because we have our they have katas and they have, I think Japan has katas and taekwondo has patterns, and we just have our forms. So they have different names, just like you have a queen in a dojo. But my friend he's a 5th dan taekwondo. He used to board here. So he'd asked me to come be a judge, and I said, I don't know anything about taekwondo. And he said, about when I've got 2 people doing a form next door to each other, or a pattern as he calls them, which one's going to look better, eh? And I said, yeah, exactly. So I did a bit of judging, like that sort of thing, which was interesting. But I try, if I do make comments, I try not to go, that's shit. When I'm on Facebook, like, I'll look at it and I'll go, hey, great to see that you're in you're doing Wing Chun and blah blah blah. What we do is this. Maybe give it a go, see if it works for you. If it doesn't, fine. So I try, and it's probably coming from being a doorman like yourself and a police officer. You try and ignore confrontation as much as you can. Now, Mark and Nima both called it a bouncer. I said, I was never a bouncer, mate. A bouncer's a thug who stands there with his arms folded and chews chewing gum or smokes a cigarette. I said, I used to open the door and go, good evening, ma'am, good evening, sir. And I'd get in there and I'd talk to them and I'd go, hey, look, sir, you've had too much to drink. And I was always very polite, and if they swung at me, I'd just put a move on them and put them on the ground. It didn't usually take long, a couple of seconds, and screaming away, going, "You're breaking my arm." And I said, "Well, actually, I'm not, but I can." Um, so I was always really polite to them, and I hated the term bouncer. They said, "Are you the bouncer?" I said, "No, I'm the doorman. I'm the security of this establishment." You know, I said, "A bouncer's a thug. I'm not a thug." You know, I've never.
Kiwi guys are very civilized. We're a bit uncivilized over here. I was always a bouncer, but I know exactly what you're saying. And of course, you know, Nima and Mark would have been decent gentlemen like you, but I despise the thugs that I work with. I was lucky, actually. I work with good blokes. One or two blokes who are like that, but I've always detested thug bouncers who pick on drunks. And, you know,
Yeah.
I saw something really bad happen in Sydney one night when I was drunk as, but I never, you know, I haven't really drunk for about 20 years, but
just the odd single malt.
Yeah, I was known to hook into the beer, and I'm sitting beside this couple, and I see the young fella's got his head down on the table, and you know, he's obviously had too much, and his beautiful girlfriend sitting there with him. And next thing, this bouncer comes up and, "Hey, you can't do that here," and just wakes him up and just rips him up, right? And to his credit, the guy didn't come up swinging or anything. He just got up groggily and went out. And then this other bouncer was there. The girl started saying, "Hey, you know, don't be too rough with him." And this guy goes, "You shut up," and slaps the girl across the face.
Oh,
and I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
And so she's instantly enraged. I go out with them, and it's on. And this thug, he was a good-looking young sort of Indian sort of guy. You know, he looked like a fine guy that you'd meet anywhere, but he was a thug, man. And she's yelling at him, and I can see he's about to have another swing at her. And I yelled, "Hey, you can't hit women, mate." And I was getting ready to go him, but I was so drunk. It was like, oh, why did I have to drink so much? Yeah. And then the boyfriend comes to life, and he sort of
can't be that bad if you remember it all. You can't be that drunk if you remember it all.
When I'm really drunk, I usually remember what's going on. That's why I don't drink spirits, because that's the only time I'd lose the plot. But I really I'm sort of thinking what to do, and the boyfriend jumps to her defense. This clown, this thug, knocks him down, and then the bastard gives him a kick in the guts on the ground. And I just jumped in between him. I shoved him back. I said, "Hey, enough. Fuck. Stop it." And the guy's looking at me, and I'm going, "No, you don't act like this. The guy's drunk. He's on the ground. You don't kick him on the ground." And I'm sort of keeping her back because she's so pissed off. She's going to go for him, and it's going to get worse. Anyway, I got these two up, and I took them off. And I said to him, "Here's my name. Go to the coppers in the morning." That was just a brutal assault and totally uncalled for. And then the head bouncer comes up, and he was a thug too, you know, and he's given me the evils like, "I want to hop into you." And I said, "Listen, sport, I worked in this industry for years, and you can't, your guy is a total thug. He just bashed that guy for no reason. The guy wasn't doing anything." And the guy's looking at me like, you know, and I thought, what a pack of mongrels. So I never went back to that pub, but the couple didn't want to press it. I chased them. So it's a dangerous world out there on the Terps, isn't it?
Yeah, the reason I became a security guy, I saw these guys up it was a nightclub. It was upstairs. It was carpeted stairs, but they used to throw people down the freaking stairs. And one guy hit his head on the back of the tow bar of a car, killed him. I think the guy went up for manslaughter, and I went, "Well, that's not being a doorman. You know, get them down the stairs, escort them, put them over your shoulder if you have to carry them down. You know, but don't do that."
They cracked down on them.
There
was a big crackdown here in the early 90s where everybody had to have a security training and security certificate. It was a bit long in coming, but really the the quality of security people went up a bit. But unfortunately, there's that culture that it's about being a thug, you know, a lot of the time. And I was just like you. I believe that these people, patrons, are out just like me, going out, just want to have a good time, don't want to get beat up by somebody, and want to be protected from actual other thugs who are not bouncers, just thugs in the public. That's what our job was, wasn't it? And all the times as an adult I've been hit was always in that nightclub scene where I'd break up a fight and somebody'd take a cheap shot and hit me in the head, and then I'd look at them and go, don't do it again. And they'd go, oh, okay, because that was their best shot, and I'd sort of just taken it and gone, don't do that again. And
yeah, I saw that one guy. Throw that person down the stairs, but I also saw another guy, and him and his brother were world powerlifting champions. You know, they were squatting like 1,000 pounds.
well,
And they picked this guy up with their thumbs in his throat, and the dude's going purple as they carry, and his feet are off the ground. They're strangling him, and he's going purple as they're taking him out the door. And you wouldn't break this guy's arm grip off there because he's an absolute powerhouse. And I saw that, and I said, someone like me needs to train up and be a doorman so that this shit stops happening. So I actually ran into Mark Spence, Sifu Mark, and he was working on the door. And there was this big guy there called Mutz, big, massive part islander Maori. I can't remember what it was, but just a big unit. And Mark's not a big guy. If you've met Mark Spence, he's not a big guy. He's maybe,
yeah, I know Mark. Mark was I never got to train with him, but he was running the Seafood Gym School in Sydney when I started in '97.
yeah.
So I saw him almost every time I went to train, and we were always friendly. How you going, mate? You know, but I never got to train with him. Just
he's from the same hairdresser as you too.
Oh yeah, he's a handsome fella, isn't he?
He's from the same hairdresser.
Just a technical note, mate. Your screen's shaking a lot. I think it might. Is your desk a bit shaky?
Oh, it could be. I can get off. I'll stop leaning on it. How's that?
Yeah. Well, we don't want to make our viewers seasick. You're a good-looking bloke. I'm sure they'll enjoy looking at you and listening. But
Thanks.
It was just going a bit like that.
Yeah. Hey, so I spoke to Mark on the door, and I said, I understand why he's a doorman, or I might have called them bouncers back then, but I said, you're a lot smaller, so what do you do? And that was 28 years ago, or 29 now. And he said, I teach Wing Chun Kung Fu. And I went, I've always wanted to know Kung Fu. So it's a chance greeting that I was like you and used to like slamming the odd beer down. So I just happened to be in a pub, and he was on the door. And he was wired up, and he ran all the security in town on all the bars in town. So I went down there and trained ever since. And Mark said to me once when he came back, or he might have been talking to me on Messenger, and he said, I've got to come back and do some training for you as a thank you because you kept the club and make you going, because it would have crumbled if I hadn't stayed. All my instructors ended up going to Australia. You buggers took all of them. So I was like the most senior student.
Well,
so
like you said, it's the other island, you know. It's
the bigger island. Yeah,
we pay better here, apparently.
Yeah, could be it. But I'll get into that later, into that my history of that. I'll start on this necrotizing fasciitis, and I'll actually go back a little bit, because this is something, my self-healing is something I've been able to do before I started Wing Chun, like for over 30 years. Now I was, or maybe not. No, I probably was doing Wing Chun when I started this. But when we were talking, you and Nima were talking about Chu Shong Tin, I've heard it a couple of times, how we can get this energy to come down his hand, and like his chi or whatever he wants to call it, and make it go backwards. I used to jump out of bed. I'm a very energetic sort of guy. I'm not as energetic now after I got smacked over by this disease, but I'm trying to get back to where I was. But I'm a sort of person, if I wake up at 6 o'clock, I almost leap out of bed and I'm running around, you know, waiting. Like it's almost like I've had
You're a major
coffee.
skier, aren't you?
Yeah.
The folks who don't know about you, are you a black diamond run type guy?
I've done a couple of blacks. if I've got someone
Mad steer,
to,
aren't you?
yeah, I'm not bad. I'm mad, yeah. But if I've got someone that knows the runs, I'll go anywhere. So I've dropped a couple of cliffs and shit, but as long as I know the people know it, I'll go with them. Yeah, like we've been up Whakapapa and it's got a roped off
Swear
cliff
on my
area.
channel, mate.
Sorry?
I swear it on my channel.
Yeah, sorry. I heard you swear just
That's a good one.
and yeah, and I've climbed over these things that go roped off cliff, you know. It's not out of bounds, but we go along and then you come along the edge and I'll drop down them. But yeah, so my wife, when I used to be married, because I split with her about 9 years ago, she got crook and she was not a morning person. I was a morning person. You know, I'd leap up, get my daughter up or whatever. She wasn't. And she got crook one night with the flu or with something. She was just feeling really bad and she went to bed and I said, give me a hand, I'll feed some positive energy into you. Now, I held her hand and I was like super concentrating on drawing energy and good chi from everywhere into my body and out my hand. And I felt my hand pulsing. And she could feel it too. She said there was surging into her hand, like the surging. Now, that's something Chu Shong Tin can do. Now, that's something I did, but I never knew I could do it. It's just, I did it. Yeah. And she woke up in the morning and she leapt out of bed like me. And I was fucked, excuse the language, but I was in bed. I could hardly move. I felt like a truck had run over me.
Wow.
So I not only gave her this energy I dragged out of there, I gave her my internal energy as well. And she got out of bed. She was crook that night. She got out of bed and she said, I've never felt better. And she was like running around. And I said, I've never felt worse. Yeah. It took me like a couple of days to come right. So that's something I've sort of had. And instructors like Calvin Moritzen, who is up in Coromandel, he runs a Wing Chun in Coromandel, Thames area. Well, he goes over to see Mark and trains with him all the time, and he's come down here to see me.
Yeah, he often comments on my stuff.
Yeah, he's a nice fella, man. Lovely guy to meet. And he came down here and he showed me something that Mark had been teaching, and he goes, how'd you pick that up straight away? Like he said, that took me weeks. And I said, I just listened to what you said and I just did it. Like I think I don't get too much into my mind, David. I never have. There's probably not much in there, mate. So it's easier to have a vacant mind when you're not thinking that much.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so I did that. I did that with my ex-wife, and that was one thing I did. And I was also a very bad asthmatic for most of my life. I was on Ventolins and these preventers, and I was in oxygen tents as a child, and rushed into hospital and stuff. I love the cup. That's
oh, cool. Hong Kong.
When I was over there. So yeah, so I had this asthma and I was going for runs every morning, 4.5K runs. And this was also when my wife was still here. So this would have been, because it would have been about 10, 11 years ago. And I was overtaking Ventolins and drugs. I'd take my preventer and my Ventolin before I ran every day. Every day I'd take it. And I said, do I have to rely on this shit for the rest of my life? No. So I said, right, I'm going to go for a run. If I get an asthma attack, one of two things is going to happen. I'm either going to die or I'm going to get over it. I don't want to die, so I'm going to get over it, right? So I ran, and sure enough, I got an asthma attack and I couldn't breathe. So I made my subconscious run my legs, because you don't have to think, put one foot in front of the other. You just do it because you've done it since you're a baby. So I just said, subconscious, you know how to keep my legs running. Rest of the body, concentrate on getting air in. So I was like, well, and I was sucking this air and I was trying to just concentrate on getting little bits of air in while I still ran at a reasonable sort of pace, maybe half the pace I was running at. Halfway around this 5K run, my brain had started to wander, and people will tell you, know me, that I do. They go, you're so random, you just bring something else up. And I said, it's always thinking. And I noticed I must have been thinking about something else, and I noticed I was running at full speed, breathing perfectly, and my asthma never returned.
Wow, good story.
And then the next one I did was sciatic, and I had sciatic in my back. And if anyone's ever had that, it's a pinched nerve, it's your sciatic nerve, and it'll cripple you, right?
Yeah. I had it real bad a couple of months ago, and I've never felt anything like it. It was shocking. And lasted for a couple of weeks.
And did the pain go down your leg? Because mine used to shoot down my right leg.
Yeah, it was all down my left leg, and literally I couldn't sleep. Lying down was agony, and I'd sleep a little bit every day, and I'd spend the whole day walking around, and physio had to basically torture me to get through it, like push into the pain so bad that I was, virtually crying like a little girly.
Yeah. Well, the thing with sciatic, like I had to pull myself up on door frames, like to get up, and I ended up going into a physio, and they couldn't get me off the table, and he's like, wow, far out, you're really bad. And they finally got me up, and I was crying as they got me up off this table. And I went out to my car, and I put the seat right down so I could like almost lie in there. So I looked like one of those boy races, you just see my head poking up.
I did that.
And I drove to the medical centre. It's a manual car. I drove to the medical centre, and I got out and I crawled on my hands and knees from my car out on the road into the medical centre. That's how buggered I was. I couldn't even stand. And they just looked at me, and like people rushed up and said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Well, obviously not." And then they gave me an injection in my butt, which relaxed all the muscles, and then I could stand. And they said, "You'll have to get someone else to come and drive your car home." So I rang a mate to come in. But I had that sciatic for quite a while, not 2 weeks, quite a while. And I couldn't sleep at night. Now I went to a osteopath over in Taradale, and his name was Stephen Briggs. And he used to be a professional cyclist over in England. He was a pommy fella. And he said, what you need to do is walk hills, because he said not enough people walk hills anymore, and that's a nerve that relates to walking hills.
Wow.
Well, I've got a hill that's a fair walk from my place, like about 5 Ks. Well, I couldn't sleep one night, so 2 a.m. in the morning, I started walking, and every step was like, like that. And I just forced myself to walk up and over this hill. And I did it for 4 hours, and I walked home, had a shower, went to work. I was selling cars, and then I'm doing test drives, just about falling asleep in the car. And then the second night I did the same thing, another 4 hours of pain. Well, 3.5 hours into that, the thing had realigned itself, and the pain went.
That is like a major, thanks mate, that's a major thing. I'm going to start walking. I used to walk hills a lot as a kid because I was in the cadets, and we were always up and down hills in the bush.
Yeah.
And I live in a place called 100 Hills. It's there's lots of hills around here.
Yeah, you got to start walking a lot of hills, mate. It really works, eh? And if I start getting a little twinge in my back, I go walk some hills again.
Nobody thinks about that. That's funny that you bring that up, because that's bloody true. We spend most of our life in these really flat artificial surfaces, don't we? Walking,
sitting on your butt most of the time.
Yeah, natural people. You get those old people who are like in their 90s still carrying massive things of sticks and whatever on their back or whatever in the mountains, and they're always up
walking in uneven ground, hills all the time, eh?
Yeah.
That's why they're so. Yeah, that's why they don't seem to get those sort of things that the white man gets, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've beaten asthma.
Anyway.
So I've beaten asthma with the power of my mind. I've beaten sciatica the same way. And necrotizing fasciitis took a little bit more, but I got that bugger as well.
So tell us about that.
I'll start from the beginning with that. So that hit about, I was working in an orchard. I've worked in an orchard for a couple of years. Now, a year earlier, almost to the day, probably 11 months earlier, I got a foot infection out on that orchard, and they said if we don't drain his foot, he's going to lose his leg.
Oh.
So that was an operation, and they did that. My foot was twice the size of the other one, so they fixed it. And 3 days later, I'm pushing my foot into the bottom of the bed, like pressurizing it. And this nurse said, "What are you doing?" I went, "I'm skiing in 9 days." He said, "No, you're not." And I went, "Yes, I am." And I just get, and then they found me on a Zimmer frame walking to the toilet because I was supposed to lie in bed with one of those pot things that you wear. And she saw me walking. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "What does it look like? I'm walking to the toilet." I was a bit of a smart ass, but it was just like, stop trying to stop me from healing myself.
Yeah,
Stop
right.
trying to stop my drive. My drive has to be what it is. You know, it's one track and that's it. I'm skiing in 9 days. Bang, get off my track.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
stop. Yeah. So I fixed that, and some of my friends said maybe this necrotizing fasciitis came from that. Maybe there was a little bug in there that they never got, and it lay dormant. No one really knows. The surgeons don't know. But I was reasonably fit, David, to be fair, like 98 kilos. I was probably carrying maybe 3 or 4 kilos of fat, but I was reasonably fit. You know, I'm working on an orchard. They sent the pickers for its 36 hectares, 26,000 orange trees. And they sent the pickers through and they did a real shit job. They just picked, they didn't strip pick it. They just went down the sides where it was all full.
Right.
And because he wanted the oranges over in the juice factory in Hastings ASAP. So he told them to do that. Well, the guy that owns that whole juice company, Homegrown Juice, which will be in your stores over in Australia as well, big company, multi-million dollar company. Well, he's actually a good friend of ours, of me and my friend Todd. So that's how I got the job in the orchard. But he said, look, he said, "Oh, Carl, I'm going to have to get you to pick those trees again." I went, "How many?" He went, "All of them." I went, 26,000. You had 8 pickers in there, man. So anyway, I thought, oh, well.
26,000 trees. Jesus.
So I started, right? And I had a tractor with 3 big bins on the back, and I've got to lie under the trees and pull all the fruit out from under the bottoms where they've missed them, reach my hand through the tree where there's sharp sticks and sharp spikes on some of these orange trees, and also get the ones on the top. So I'm lying under the trees and small spiders are falling in my mouth and crap off the trees and everything. I'm just spitting them out and I just keep working. So I've been doing that for 2 weeks, and the boss came and helped me, and he was 65, like I'm 58. I was 57 when I was there. And he came to help me, but only for an hour here and there.
Right.
And then he helped me on this next day, and I just said to him, "Something's wrong." I said, "My legs feel like they weigh 100 kilos each." And he said, "Oh, you'll just be tired from picking." I said, "No, I'm picking fit, if there's such a word." I said, "I've been doing it for 2 weeks."
Yeah, I know.
You know, dumping these baskets about the size of clothes baskets into the big bins.
I had an apple orchard years ago, and I used to pick it all by myself. Not 26,000 bloody trees, probably at 600 or something. But God Almighty, it was hard yakka.
Yeah, so I'm doing 26,000 trees, and I'm smacking through these things quite fast. Like he said, a row you could get 4 bins to a row. Well, I was getting 2 bins to like 6 rows because most of the fruit had been picked. And I said, "Rob, I'm not picking fruit. I'm looking for fruit. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
I can't just go up and go like that. I've got to go, oh, there's some oranges there. Oh, there's some under there. You know, it's different." But anyway, he said, "Oh, you're probably just tired." And I said, "No, mate, something's seriously wrong." And I said, "I know it's so wrong, I won't be in at work tomorrow. That's how wrong it is." And I got into my car and I lifted my legs into the car. I couldn't physically pick my leg up and put it in the car. I grabbed one leg at a time, lifted it in, and then drove the 15 minutes home in my manual car. So I got home and I got myself out to, might have been the next morning, I can't remember. It was pretty soon after that. I got myself out to the hospital, and they took blood tests, urine sample, 2 x-rays and a CT scan, and they found nothing. And they said, "Well, we can't find anything, so we've got to send you home." And I said, "Don't send me home. There's something seriously wrong with me. Do not send me home." But they sent me home. So I'm at home and I went to my doctor, and I'm taking painkillers, and I'm freaking taking something to make me crap. You know, I thought, oh, maybe it's a lower bowel issue. I didn't know. I was just taking anything I possibly could. And I realized that, it was something really bad, because when I'm getting a bit gross here, but when I was on the toilet, when you're crapping a lot, So you're wiping away. Well, one side, if you've ever had the runs, most of us have in our life, it starts getting a bit sandpaper on your butt, doesn't it, Dave?
Yeah.
So it felt like that, but the other side felt like a motocross track, and I went, what are all these lumps? Where'd they come from? And I thought, this isn't cool. There's something seriously wrong. So one of my mates said, stop being the hard man and get yourself back into hospital. And I said, well, what if they just send me home? I've already done all the tests. And then a friend of mine who's a paramedic, he said, Warren Elliott, he said, take yourself over there in an ambulance because they won't send you away. So by the time the ambulance arrived, I was waiting in my driveway. They had to lift me into the ambulance. Like, I couldn't step up into there. It was just damn near impossible. My daughter hopped in there with me. I don't remember her being in there. And then I woke up 5 days later out of induced coma, 17 kilos lighter.
Bloody hell.
And I don't recommend it as a weight loss program. Now, a lot of the things that were said to me were after it happened, by the doctors, by the anaesthetist, and a lot of it by my friends, by my good friends. One of them, Lindsay, she's like a sister to me. I've known her for years, and my older sister lives up 525 k's away. So the first person I always contact is Lindsay. And I went, I'm going into surgery, blah, blah, blah. Look after Maya, my daughter. Look after my accounts, organise everyone. She's a phenomenal organizer. Like, she will do shifts of people to come see me. She's just excellent. So she said, yeah, righto. So she was one of the first people to see me when I was in ICU, and she said she came around the corner and her knees buckled, and nothing makes that girl's knees buckle, eh?
Yeah, right.
And she said, oh, the first thing I saw was you and the fentanyl they were pumping into you. Now, she's had a broken back before. Fentanyl is one of the most powerful drugs they have. You used to be a nurse. I don't know if it was around back in your day.
I don't remember it. No.
Yeah.
That was a long time.
Well, yeah, it's quite more of a modern thing, I guess, but it's
Isn't that what they're shooting up over in the States?
Yeah. It's a freaking,
it's like
almost like a heroin type drug. And
level, yeah, right.
Yeah, so it's right up there. And she said, are you pumping fentanyl into him? They said, yeah, enough to kill 2 elephants. But he doesn't want to die.
Are they trying to kill him?
Yeah, and when I came out of these things for five days of comas, and they were scary dreams I had there, Dave. Like the ground was opening up. Cobbled stones were opening up, and I was going down, and I was flying dragons underground and everything. Very, very bizarre dreams. My bed was being tipped up on its edge. I had sides on my bed, and I was being pushed up against walls, and there was like people coming at me with knives. And then I went, I'm too weak, I can't fight them. And then I'd wake up and I'd look at my bed, and I'd make my bed go back down, and I'd make the room come round, then I'd go out again.
Wow.
So just crazy stuff. When they brought me out of my comas, I didn't sleep for days. I was just too scared to sleep, and not much scares me, but it was pretty hectic. So 4 weeks later, an anaesthetist came into my room, and he said, do you know what you said to me when you came in? I was the first anaesthetist you saw. And I went, no. And he said, you said, I'll be fine. And I went, no, you won't. And then he goes, I considered leaving you asleep.
Really?
As in not waking me. I'm an organ donor, so I wouldn't be talking to you now. My organs would probably be in someone else. Whether they'd harvest them once they've got necrotizing fasciitis in my body, I very much doubt it. But yeah, he said he nearly left me asleep. 2 of the surgeons, Lindsay said there was 3 surgeons working on me round the clock for 5 days. So both, I don't know if you've seen my scars on my legs.
I've seen the photos you sent me, and they really freaked me out. I thought, my God.
Yeah. Well, that was both sides. Yeah, so that was from my my knee right up my thigh, through my scrotum, down the other side, and then from my knee down to my ankle, both sides, plus a big cut in my back.
So necrotizing fasciitis.
It's a flesh-eating disease.
Yeah, like necrotic means sort of dead flesh, or
yeah. So
And
they had to cut it out of me and burn it. They had to cut it out of me and burn it. And my thighs at one stage were thinner than my knees.
mm,
And yesterday in the gym, last night in the gym, I was leg pressing 160 pounds.
yeah. Well, that's the thing, you know, you and I only really got to know each other for about a year, I guess, and we'd had good conversations. And you first wrote to me, there was a bit of a kerfuffle going on. Won't go into that, but you sort of wrote to me and said thanks for being so respectful and, you know, whatever. And I liked you straight away, and you said you like me, and we just become friendly. And then I didn't know, I'd wondered where you'd gone. I think I'd sent you a couple of messages and got nothing back. And then I was shocked to see Nima's post on the Shong lineage forum on Facebook saying our friend Carl has had, you know, this terrible
fighting for his life
disease, and he's like in there in the hospital, and all his friends are around, and this you know, a fund had been set up to help you and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, bloody hell, you know.
No,
I felt bad I hadn't chased you harder, but I just never thought, I just didn't think anything was bad. I thought,
well, you wouldn't, would you? See, two of the doctors came in to see me. They used to shake their heads when they came in to see me in my bed after the operations, because they still couldn't believe I was alive. And they said, we spoke to each other before we started operating, and they looked at the x-rays and they said there was no way we can cut this much amount of flesh out of a man and him live.
wow. And they told
so
you, what were the statistics? They told you that the like, what's the rate of people who actually live through this?
Well, it depends. Like, because I was diagnosed late, or probably misdiagnosed in the first instance, you know, because I went home, it probably got a bit worse over those 2 days at home. Worldwide, it seems to be 25% die from it, which is probably, nearly 20% more than COVID at the moment. But 25% die and 50% end up in ICU. Most of them end up losing limbs, losing body organs. While I was in there, a lady got it. She ended up on a dialysis machine. A 70-year-old guy got it in Woodville, which is maybe 2 hours drive away. He died.
Yeah.
So they said to my friend Lindsay to get hold of my older sister. This was 3 days into the operations, and they said there's an 85% chance we'll lose him. And the next day they said there's a 95% chance we'll lose him. So I had a 5% chance of life, but the only person that 30 was going to live was one that was unconscious, which is me. And I had no doubt in my mind that I would not come through that. Don't know how. It's just the way I am. And it's sort of, it was, they had to lift my legs into bed. 5 weeks later, I had 2 Renesis machines on me. Now, I don't know if they probably wouldn't have had those back when you're nursing either. But what they do on these big cuts down my leg, they took the stitches out after a few days, and this nurse had to jump back because a litre of fluid flew out of one leg. And then a litre of fluid flew out of there, like a jug, and out of both legs. And then they were draining my left leg for 2 or 3 days, and they said, I think all of that's gone, but my right leg still had a bit in it. So they put a big strip on it, and they turn on this Renesis machine that sucks down like a vacuum cleaner. The thing on your leg just all sucks down into the wound, and then it drips down these tubes into crystals in this Renesis machine. So I had one of them on my right leg and another one running out of my butt, because those bumps I told you in my butt, they had to do 2 cuts in my butt that were 8 centimeters long by 5 deep.
Oh, Jesus.
So in old inches, that's freaking 3 inches long by 2 inches deep, 2 of them. So they were packed out, and I've got to sit on that line. That you can't get away from your butt, Dave. You've got to lie on it, You've got to sit on it. So they had that really well packed, and they had these Renesis machines. And so 5 weeks later, I'm in the A&R unit, and I'm trying to get these Renesis machines onto the Zimmer frame so I can walk through the ward. and get my legs moving. And this guy goes, what are you doing? And he's a big Islander boy, mate. It'd be like the size of you and me put together. You know, he's about 140 kilos, big, solid, what they call care associates over here. That, you know, the like the nurses' assistants.
Right.
And he said, I'll help you, mate. I'll help you. No worries. So he lifted me up and I got on the Zimmer frame, fucking determined. And I'd do like 50 steps and I'd set myself little targets every time I walked. Like I got to go 10 steps further. And, you know, like I walked about 50 steps and he dragged a chair along, like a small chair with him, like it wouldn't have been anything for this guy to carry. It was massive. So he brings his chair and I said, oh, I've got to sit down. I'd sit down. I said, can you get me a drink of water? He said, yeah. And I go, I feel so effing useless, you know, I'm freaking. And he goes, Carl, they said you'd be in hospital 6 months. They said you may never walk again. I've been working here 15 years. I've never seen anyone more determined in my whole life. He said, there's people here that have been through a quarter of what you had been through and they can't get out of bed yet. You're trying to freaking run down the corridor. But that's me. You know, it's just the way I am. I was up on the mountain a couple of years ago and Maya and I were out in the far west and we're going off like these natural half pipes and going off jumps and just going everywhere and racing each other. And then I tripped over my own 4 feet and I wrapped my pole around myself and I cracked some ribs and I said, oh, help me up. And she helped me up with the right side. And I was like, oh, shit, I broke it. I've done something really bad like that. And I said, we're out the far west quad. I'm not going to be able to ski out from here because I'll have to go down too many cliffs and black runs. I said, we've got to ski to the bottom of the far west quad, go up to the top so I can go out the easy way and ski down to the medical centre, which is 2 kilometres away. So I proceeded to ski down the mountain, go up, ski out, followed it, got all the way to the medical centre. I'm sitting there trying to breathe like it was worth an asthma attack. And I said, oh, I think I broke some ribs. And they went, there's no way you would have skied 2 kilometres away with broken ribs. Yeah, so they gave me painkillers. And lucky it was like the end of our ski trip. The next day it was raining, the mountain was closed. The day after that it was fine, but Maya said, you probably don't want to ski. I said, I can't even bend down and put my boots on. I'm going to have to wear jandals home, you know. So I drove the car home. I went to work in the orchard. Our hydraulic arm tractor that we use for spraying, it's all, you know, hydraulic arm operated from inside.
I realise I'm going to have to put subtitles into this, mate. You said jandals then. I mean, nobody knows what that is.
Flip-flops or what do you call them over there?
Thongs, yeah.
Thongs.
That's the correct term. But yeah, I'll for the non-Kiwi speaking, I'll put some subtitles in.
Thongs are what girls wear up here in the. But anyway, yeah. So I got on this orchard and I went, okay, I'm going to have to weed spray with the other tractor, which is a hand-operated arm. So I tried to grab it with my right side and I went, oh, that hurts. So I drove that way, basically ambidextrous, because you learn how to drive both ways because, you know, 36 hectares, you're going down a lot of roads, so you get tired, so you switch. So I drove all day like that, and every bump I went over, I told the good Lord about it, and
yeah.
Jesus Christ, and you know, I swore my head off, and then the boss goes, you're not good, eh? You're not good. And I went, I've been better. And he goes, for Christ's sake, get to the doctors, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, yeah. And I said, well, I'll come back and finish that block because that should take me to a morning smoker and then I'll go. So that's the sort of way I operate. I can't leave a job half undone. So I finished it, got in and drove to the doctors. And he said, well, you wouldn't have worked in an orchard operating a freaking spray arm and doing all this with cracked ribs. And I said, well, can you please take an x-ray? I want to see. So they took an x-ray and one whole side of my ribs was crushed. I crushed like 5 or 6 of them. I had fluid on a lung. Oh. And he made me wait outside. Then he called me into the office and he said, sorry, we didn't believe you, but I've got a surgeon on standby in case we need him. So maybe it's pig-headedness. I don't know, but I have a good pain tolerance and a desire to live, I guess.
Got a great determination. I can, see that. Anybody can see that in you. Those stories you told earlier, going back to what you said about the chi experience, to obviously Wing Chun at the highest level is cultivating that. And Sigong Chu Shong Tin, a true master of the art, could do things that we just don't even understand. But he, you know, he'd spent well over, you know, a long lifetime developing and honing and just developing those skills to a very high level. But you obviously have a bit of a natural gift for the ways of the mind, you know, your determination and.
Yeah, I look at guys like Mark Spence, who spent a lot of time and especially Nima. And they'd both say, "Oh, I'll never be as good as him," or "Yeah, we'll never be as good as him." And I'm thinking, well, if you keep telling yourself that, you won't be. You know, now surely, like people will go, "Oh, but I can't say I'm going to be as good as him." And I said, "Why not?" He'd probably want you to think that.
Yeah,
he'd probably want you to have that, because your subconscious is going to work on that while you're asleep.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think it's very important to understand that our heroes are humans, and you know, obviously acknowledge the amazing dedication and the amount of time they spend becoming who they are. But it's really important to believe in yourself and to say, yes, I could do that, you know, not oh, I could never do that. But
and the thing with guys like Mark and Nima, it's their job. Like, it's never been my job. It's been something I do maybe 3 hours a week out of my garage with students, you know, to keep myself in. Whereas they do it all day, every day. So
I think those guys are very modest guys, and undoubtedly in their selves they think, I'm going to be that good, because as you said, that's what Sigong wants. I know that, even though I never met him. I've talked to his close friends and students who've all said, you know, like Sibak Frederick Moe over there in New Zealand, who started in 1960. He told me a couple of times, you know, what Sigong wanted is for us to strive to attain what he attained. You know, he was never hiding the art from us, and that's what he really wanted, was for people to get it and to run with it. And it becomes a, you know, you want to be Carl, you want to be Dave, you know, you want to be, once you get a taste for this whole, it's sort of undiscovered, isn't it? It's like a secret of humanity, and you wonder why more people don't know about it. But I think a lot of people do. We just don't know them, you know. In other arts, there must be people there is people who've discovered Qi. I mean, obviously Qi's, it's a contentious issue with some Westerners, just because it's considered sort of pseudoscience or just a made up thing.
Yeah.
But you talk to any intelligent Chinese person, they'll generally say, oh yeah, you know, that's real. And I know my Chinese friends have said there's no such thing as Kung Fu without Qi. The reason Qi's not in a lot of Kung Fu that we see in the West is because it was left out, because Westerners said, no, it's not true. And that's just what you were saying, you know, people go, oh, I couldn't do that because that's spooky, hocus pocus, woo woo, you know, what they say about all on that above the ordinary things. But that doesn't mean it's not real. It's just that they haven't experienced it. So, and
exactly. And when I was in one of the things I did when I was in hospital, one of my friends was sitting next to me, and I had these bouts of pain in my legs, or pain, you know, like maybe the drugs were wearing off, I don't know. But I was just like, oh, and he goes, are you all right? And I went, just give me a couple of minutes. And I said, just sit there. And I'd lie back and I'd imagine all my muscles falling off my body into the bed. And I'd imagine my body elongating. And I'd be breathing deep in, you know, good energy in, bad energy out. And I'd just be doing that. I'd be thinking it in my head. I wouldn't be saying it out loud, but I'd be breathing in, thinking, you know, good energy in, good chi in, bad out. and I'd be thinking of my muscles just relaxing off my body and my body elongating, because if I could get my legs in a certain position, the pain would go. And my mate that was sitting at the bed, I'd sort of open my eyes, I go, yeah, that's better. And he goes, dude, that's insane. And he said, the bed looked like it got heavier.
Yeah, right.
He said, I saw you sink into the bed and then I saw you elongate. And he said, I don't know how you did that, but that was freaky as.
That's cool.
Yeah,
it's cool when somebody else can see it and notices it like that.
Yeah, but I had
So you're using Wing Chun.
Yeah, when I first came out of ICU, or they woke me, that friend of mine, Lindsay, had organised a shift of my friends to come in every half hour to hour for 9 hours of visiting. And I had this male nurse, and he just saw people coming, like one each side, holding my hands, feeding me, leaving, more coming, leaving me. And he almost had tears in his eyes. And he said, you know, the caliber of a man by the caliber of his friends. And I said, it's all a bit embarrassing, actually. And he said, why? He said, you're obviously well loved and you put that out there, and that's why it's coming back to you now.
Yeah. I just wanted to put two titles. You know, I do the thumbnails, I put a title on it.
Yeah.
So for this interview, I was thinking either interview with Sifu Carl Drinkwater, Wing Chun Miracle Man, or the other one is interview with Sifu Carl Drinkwater, the man they couldn't root, shoot, or electrocute. So I was just wondering which one you think's best.
Maybe the first one.